Welcome to the Sedona Soul Sisters show, down-to-earth discussions on spirituality, metaphysics, paranormal, and healing topics. We are the most trusted psychic mediums and healers in Sedona, Arizona. Rozlyn Reynolds, myself, Ivory LaNoue, Terri Ann Russell, and Robert Markham, who's not here on the show today. We have offices in Sedona, Arizona, where we see clients from all over the world. Today's topic is ethics of a reading. If you join us live and you want to ask questions or share your own stories about ethics of a reading, please use the raise your hand feature or just ask your question in the chat room. And if you're watching, listening later and you have questions, as you know, we welcome them at any time. You can email us. That email is in the show description. So let's just start by talking about, it's not like the medical profession or something where there's this board of ethics overseeing you and they tell you these are the rules you must follow. It's kind of like the Wild West in the spirituality and healing world, isn't it? That's why I'm wearing my Wild West sweater today. There's no governing body, right? We don't have a board of the state of Arizona overseeing psychics, mediums, and healers. So anybody can practice, and really it's down to who they claim to be, what they feel that, what their best intentions are. But when you are seeking an experience and you want a quality ethical reading, you might not even know what to look for, like what you want to get and what are some red flags that you want to avoid. So I think that whether you're looking for a prolonged relationship with a reader or you just want a one-time reading, it's worthwhile knowing some of these things because we do hold ourselves to a high standard at Sedona Soul Sisters, and we think about ethics, we talk about it, we hold ourselves to that on a regular basis. So I think there's a lot of questions you can ask yourself, but before we get into that, do either one of you have something you want to say here at the beginning of this topic? I guess not.
I don't. I was going to say, I think when you're ethical and your values, I believe a lot in the mirror scenario. So I think if you're expecting a bad experience, honestly, you're going to get a bad experience. I think it has a lot to do. I don't think they look at that aspect of it. Like when you're reading for somebody, if they come in with this wall, like, oh, you're the psychic, tell me. Because that happened to me in the beginning. I was like, what? Like, I was not expecting that at all. So, you have to really go in there with an open mind, I'd say.
And, Terri Ann, that kind of thing tends to happen when you're new in your career more than later. I think that it's almost like the guides send people to you to test you so that you can figure out how you're going to handle that. What are you going to say? What are your boundaries? And how are you going to handle that? Because it doesn't really happen anymore. It's more like people go, oh, you want me to ask you questions? Only if you want really targeted, worthwhile information and not just a bunch of confirmation. Sure. So there's no fixed guidelines again on how to practice as a psychic, a medium, even a healer. But one thing, if you're listening and you fit into those categories, is the work I'm offering in alignment with my values? Am I offering a service I don't really believe in, that I feel is not ethical, not real? Does it feel fraudulent? Why? Well, don't do it. And sometimes you can have a mentor who engages like in a group of services and you think that's the group of services you need to do. And then later you realize you don't feel comfortable with one or more of them.
That goes back to like individuality. And I think that's all part of the process for us, finding yourself, who you are, what you're good at. I know in the beginning, you tend to have a lot of doubts, like, is this really happening? I know for me, when I started healing, it was like, well, is this really possible? And so you're learning and growing as well in your practice. But I think being an individual is what sets you apart. We've been conditioned to follow people. Oh, well, they offer this or they're doing it this way, so this is how it should be. And I think as you go along, you find your own individuality.
Absolutely. That's what really, along with being gifted in whatever you offer, is your personality and how you do your service, how you do your readings. People connect with it. So You really don't want to be a carbon copy of somebody else, but you could really look up to people that you know who've been doing this business longer, who you feel have high standards, high ethics, good morals, and model yourself after that, especially in the beginning. I think you got to start somewhere. And if there's somebody you admire, that's a good place to start.
I admire you ladies. You guys taught me so much.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. I actually have looked up to Roz because though I've been doing this work for a long time, not 40 years, not more than 40 years. So I do appreciate Roz's ongoing standards, her high ethics. They're very good. And I luckily had mentors who really drove that home. If it's not part of your training, you're going to want to find somebody who does offer some training. And there's some great books out there, which is actually what brought the subject up. I had seen it by accident. I'm a reader. I love to read. So I was just looking through Amazon. And a few years ago, I saw one that was about ethics for a psychic reader. And I thought, oh, that would be really interesting. And I intended to have it here so I could show it to you and help her sell more of those. And I left it at the office. So I'll have to put the name of it in the blog post that accompanies this on our blog. But trust me, there's actually several out there now. And I think it's worthwhile reading these. And even if you've been doing this work a long time, you may realize you've fallen into a practice that's not really considered ethical, or you never were told something wasn't ethical. Go ahead, Roz.
I feel like, and I've said this many times, I really feel like we have to answer to a higher authority. That's how I always feel. Like, I'm here doing this work. I was given the ability to do this work. I was directed to do it. And I feel like, a lot of times we do find in clients a healthy, what I would call a healthy skepticism, but also their expectation sometimes is that, yeah, they're encountering someone who's not of truth. They have a lot of fear around that. And of course, a lot of that's created by the media, by different presentations of how this works. But the one thing I always feel is like, I am not here to be your yes person. I'm not here to just tell you what you want to hear. I'm here to receive information through your angels and guides that's directed through me for you. And I have to answer for doing a good job at that. There is a standard that's not of this earth and the people on it. There's a higher standard that, I think people really need to realize that a lot of the people that I have met who do this as a practitioner, they do feel that way. They do feel like, I'm here doing this work. I always tell people this is my job from God. Okay. I know that I was directed to do this. And I think, realizing that the clients who come in, they need to give that first and foremost their consideration. And the other thing is, as you guys know, and many of you out there know, that the bottom line here is that there is a resonating frequency that people feel when they connect with us and when they look at our picture. So the majority of people who come in my situation always say, I saw your picture and I knew I wanted to talk to you. And I think realizing that, you realize that is an ethical command to us.
Contract we're not aware of.
Yeah. And I don't know if, I've always laughed and gone, I don't know if I would have picked this for myself. But hey, that's the way it is.
Yeah, it's not the kind of job you can just quit. Angels don't let you do that when you've got a mission.
They
But I
don't.
agree with you, Rozlyn. How many times have we talked about the fact that people will walk in and say, I was driving by and I saw the name of your business, Sedona Soul Sisters, on the front of the plaza, and I just had to come in. I didn't even know what you do. And I heard, I have to go in there. And so
True.
sometimes just seeing the name of the business or one of our names or hearing our voices will be what it takes. Everything about you has a frequency. And so your ethics have a frequency as well. And a lot of times people that I've seen have had a negative experience in the past where they saw somebody who started bringing up curses and spells and tried to get did get thousands of dollars out of them, very unethical things of that sort. And I assure them, like, I don't want you to be addicted to, or reliant on readings with me. I want to encourage you to work on your own intuition. And hopefully I'm confirming enough of what you already know that you feel secure about not seeing me and other readers so often that you can lessen and lessen. Unless you're going through something extraordinary, you may need more support, because even for us, when we're going through something in our personal lives, we need a little bit more help tuning in to things. So it can really mess with your ability to intuit things. But everything about you's got that frequency. So if you raise your ethics, you're going to draw in people really seeking that ethical experience. But what makes it, like, some specifics? I thought about living your own life with personal and professional integrity, just not doing things, not participating in things that people would look at and go, how can they be an ethical psychic or medium if they're doing that? You have to think about it, because as we've said, this is not a job. This is a calling, and a calling is about everything you do in your life.
It's true.
There's just no way around it. It's a big commitment to really embrace this as your calling. And then another one is like, go ahead, Terri Ann.
I think you said it good, because, honestly, I didn't see myself doing any of this at one time. And I laugh sometimes because these opportunities show up. People say, well, did you look for that? And I'm like, no, I had no desire to do anything like that. And the opportunity just presented itself. And that's how it's like a stepping stone, I describe. And so when people are opening up their own intuition, you're getting messages, you're understanding that this is a calling, there's a bigger purpose behind it. It's not just about you going doing little readings at a party. There's a bigger purpose.
Absolutely, 100%. I didn't see myself doing this either. As a matter of fact, I ran from it as hard as I could for a long time, until my angels are like, enough. Now you're moving to Sedona. You're going to open a business. You're going to do this using your name, your face. And I wanted to hide in a closet, but here I am. Another one's pretty obvious. I mean, it's some basics like treating all clients equally, not having prejudiced or discriminatory thoughts and behavior, and not changing what you say to a person based on who and what they are. Just loving of everybody unconditionally as your client and wanting to give them your best. I don't think anybody would disagree with that.
No, I mean, we all have things that have done to us, and you look at it from a different lens, I believe. We have compassion that I think is really crucial when somebody's in there and they're so vulnerable with you and they're telling you their deepest pains. And I think it's important to have that, be able to have that, not take it on, but be able to have that compassion without taking it on, and having an understanding without having judgment. And I think that, again, goes back to your character, right? I mean, if you're judging people in the world, what makes you think you're not going to judge people in your office?
Yes. So
Very good point.
re-examining ourselves, is that something you've been unconsciously doing? I think that's super important. This is another pretty big one. Avoiding fraudulent claims, practices, and promises. We can never claim to be 100% accurate. Nobody is. We are not God. We do not have 100% knowledge 100% of the time. We can be very accurate the majority of the time. But anybody who says they're 100% accurate or even close to that, I think that's, I don't think that's realistic. You can be really accurate, but we need to think about that, things, and especially all three of us also do healing, and Terri Ann, that's your focus. You wouldn't say, I guarantee I'll heal you. I will heal you no matter what's wrong with you. No, you could say, I'm going to relieve your pain. I'm going to relieve your emotional distress. Here's something reasonable you can expect. And here's a reasonable investment of your time and money it's going to take to get you there. But to say, I can heal everything, come on in, you'll leave a new person, then people don't trust you anymore, because who believes that?
Right. And I think Roz said it well, where I'm not doing the healing, the spirit working through me. I'm just a conduit that spirit works through. And so I think we need to find a better word.
I do too.
Expect you to be healed, and how I explain it is, I'm making the space for you to do your own healing.
Mhm.
Not everybody's ready really to hear that, because they just want a quick fix. And I explain to people, this isn't a quick fix. There's work usually that you need to be done. And through my work that I do, it brings it to the surface so that you can view it, understand it, be aware of it, and acknowledge it, and learn how to heal that yourself.
Absolutely. And that kind of comes with another thing of putting those disclaimers out there. I do see a lot of people who want to know about physical things, and I'll say, I'm not a doctor. I don't even consider myself to be a medical intuitive. And yet I do see things and I do feel things, and I'll tell you what I get, but you need to go see your medical professional. I'm not diagnosing. We can't claim to diagnose. We cannot claim to heal. Those things are actually illegal to say. And so we have to be another one too. Yes, I have a background in the field of mental health, but I'm not currently a therapist. So I don't claim to be a therapist. I say I have a background in counseling and I can help you with that. I'll give you what I can, but there's a lot of times when I say that really goes into traditional therapy, and I really think you need to see a therapist about that. Or if they really need medication, then you really need to see a psychiatrist. I know I cannot fill every need that client has, nor do I want to try. What do you want to say, Roz?
I think too, from the perspective of, I basically, when I'm tuning in on someone's pain or their situation, whatever they're dealing with, I am shown words on that little screen that comes up with me. And, a lot of times, to be honest, I have no medical background, so I don't even know what those words always mean. But I see very distinctly that word. And I also have found over the years that a lot of times the people who end up coming to me or they're usually referred, they have already had diagnosis. They have already been having treatment. It's just that they have emotional, spiritual, sometimes past life issues that are impacting their ability to return to wellness. So I think, the expectation, and I'm just like you, Ivory, I never say I'm a medical intuitive, because a lot of the medical intuitives actually have training. They have taken on learning about different aspects of wellness and illness and all that. So I think it's a good thing for people to just process that information and realize that, what we are able to bring to them is information through their guidance that really is not coming from us. And that's really important for people to get comfortable with. I mean, I know you guys have experienced this, but there have been times when I've had people be sent to me and, say, oh, well, my friend came here and, you told her what was wrong with her. Well, there's a big stretch there between, me seeing words coming up around this person and actually knowing anything about what's going on in terms of, their physical situation. So I think it's a broad, it's a pretty broad energy field to delve into too, because we are a mind, body, spirit being. And one thing of those three items is not going to fix what's going on. It has to be a thing where, as Terri Ann saying, you realize that you need to look into these issues and you need to be open to working on what's going on in your own mind, body, spirit frequencies to make change.
100%. Absolutely. And kind of slides right into the next thing of not inserting your opinion into the information that you give a client. So they might be asking about something you have strong thoughts about, but you have to put that aside and you're just telling them what you get psychically or from their angels and guides, what you see, hear, feel, or come to know only, and the rest of it gets left out. So when people they'll say later, they're like, thank you so much for your advice. And I'll say, you're welcome, but I want to just reiterate, it's not advice. I don't give advice. I tell you what I get psychically or what your angels and guides are saying to me for you. So it's messages for you, but then it's up to you to make that decision, because it's not appropriate for me to tell you what to do or not to do, or even what I think you should do. I avoid giving that very much so, because I don't think it's right to influence your free will.
I do that with my a lot of my clients. I have them fill out a liability and release form now, because I've learned, especially in like a past life regression, that's coming from their higher self, their soul. I've had the same thing where people say, well, you said I have to do this. And I'm like, I've never said that you had to do that. That is something that your higher self. So I put it right in the liability. This is coming from your higher self. This is not coming from me. Again, that guidance. And, most often they usually have that inner guidance.
Yeah. I think that's another good point is having people sign a form is a good idea for a lot of things, especially healing practices, really important. So something I think is really big is ethical thing is to encourage clients to accept responsibility for their lives and the decisions they make or do not make. And so that they're not, it's really important. I've talked about this before, but back when I was still working in mental health, I volunteered to teach counseling blocks for a domestic violence shelter that my friend was a director at. And that's where I really had it hammered home of how powerful it is for people to understand that they are the ones who made the decisions, good or bad. You're the reason you're in the position you're in now. What was your part in getting there? Because if you can't do that, then you always feel like you're at the mercy of everyone. You can get stuck in a victim mentality. So encouraging clients to take that responsibility, then they feel more empowered to make good decisions, to take control of their lives. And, I never want them to feel like I'm controlling their life in any way. I think that if you feel that way about a reader or a healer, I think that's a big red flag. If they're making you feel that way. And if you decide to feel that way, that's one thing. But if they're telling you that in any way, then I consider that a big red flag. So how about honoring the point of others, even if you disagree, or especially if you disagree? So you pass on the information you give, and they see that very differently than the guides and angels are presenting it, but that's their view of it. And I think sometimes you have to just let that lie.
You can't
can't.
control their perspective. We're not responsible for anybody else. I
No.
just said that today. We are not responsible for how anybody else feels or thinks. And that goes back to that empowerment, right? I'm not responsible for how you feel. If you feel some way or you think this is what occurred, a lot of times that's your perspective rooted deep within your belief system, your limited belief system, right?
I've had clients say things, this mostly way in the past, and this is not like specifics of a person, but just kind of conglomeration, things to the effect of, I don't like that. Okay, you don't have to do anything with this information. This is coming through very clearly. It's coming through, so if you're not ready to receive it, put this away. Maybe there'll come a time when you want to take a look at that again, listen to it, and it'll be important to you. And for right now, don't worry about it. Because to me, that means that my client is not yet in a place where they can benefit from that piece of information, but yet it was still given to me and I wasn't told, don't tell them that, because I do sometimes hear that. Don't tell them that, even if I get it. I didn't get that, so they're supposed to hear it. And I encourage them to record their sessions so they can listen later. And you just have to embrace, it's kind of right back to what we talked about a little while ago. You can't control another person. I don't want to.
Right.
I
And
got
that's
enough
their free
work
will.
with myself.
That's their free will. They've given the information. They do what they want. The easiest way I usually explain it to people is like, I can say that you're going to have chicken for dinner. Now you go to dinner and you want to have steak, right? So I'm not wrong. You have the free will to change what that is, honestly.
Yeah, I've had people ask me things like, am I going to go on vacation on March 1st? I don't know. Are you? And they'll laugh. And I say, seriously, like that's not a psychic question. That's a decision you're making. So is there a reason you're asking this? Well, yeah, I'm kind of got a bad feeling something might happen. I said, so how about if we take a look at whether it's in your best and highest good to take that vacation on March 1st? Yes, yes. So that's a psychic question. That's something I can look at. But if it's like Terri Ann said, I could say, yes, you're going to take it. And you can say, I'm going to spite her and I'm not going to take it. You were wrong. So, that's not a psychic question. That's you changing your mind. And that's okay too. So, you have free will. We all do. Sometimes it can be kind of funny. Here's a big one: setting reasonable fees with no hidden costs. So if somebody, if you hear things like, I'm going to need $1,000 to clear that curse from you, or I can get that entity away from you, but I'm going to need $500 every week and I'm going to need to see you every week. That's a big red flag. Roz does a lot of work with entities, dark entities, removing these things. I don't deal with curses, and I don't think any of us deal with curses. But those kind of things where it's something other than the fee you're paying for your time with the reader is a red flag. It's a professional, or we look at it, it's a professional service. We are professionals. We're offering you our service that is through God, through our angels, through our gifts that God gave to us. But it's just the fee that we put out there. It's this much per half hour, this much for an hour, and then that's it. So when people are charging that way, that's the ethical way to approach it. But if they come back later and they're saying they're going to need a whole lot more money, then it is a red flag. I mean, I don't think there's any way around that. Is there, ladies?
Not at all.
I don't think so.
No, that's how people get scammed. And if you have any doubts about that, you can go to like Best Psychic Directory, and the guy, Bob Olson, who has that site, has all kinds of stories on there, things to watch out for. And it's a good thing to kind of look and see that too. Here's one: keeping all readings confidential and discreet. Sometimes you might need to talk to a colleague if you feel like you're not sure about something that happened, but you don't tell them the person's name. You don't tell them personal details that would embarrass that person. You're just trying to get like a professional consultation with somebody is also confidential and discreet. Otherwise, you don't talk about it at all. And it is a lot like going to a counselor, don't you think, ladies?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, people tell us very intimate,
Private
personal,
things.
private things that they don't want anybody else to know. I wouldn't either if I was them. You have to have that expectation. You deserve to have that expectation that your secret stays secret, or you're not going to want to go back to that person again. We already talked about that claiming 100% accuracy thing. This is something I was talking to Terri Ann about before we started today's show, because I was reading this last night and I'm thinking about it so much. I'm like, I don't agree totally. There's some readers who will not divulge third-party information at all unless that third party has given permission to be looked at. But let me give you an example of what that means. You go in for a reading and you want to, I'll use the example. This is just a made up thing. You have a toxic sister-in-law. Maybe she's narcissistic, and you have to deal with her, or you feel you have to deal with her, and you're trying to figure this out. And so you say, can you just look at, you don't even know she's a narcissist. Can you look at my sister-in-law and just kind of see like what's going on with her? Okay, there's readers out there who feel they won't do that because the sister-in-law hasn't given permission to look at them. My personal feeling about that is it's affecting my client's life. I'm going to look and see just a little bit. I'm not going to try to look at every deep, dark secret of that sister-in-law, but I'm going to know pretty quick there's narcissistic energy there. And I'm going to say this. Then I feel like that's at the point a good reader directs it back to the client and says, let's talk about how you can better handle her, some boundaries, things you should be aware of, ways to avoid this, that, what they can do. What are your thoughts on that, ladies?
I agree 100%. I think everything we take responsibility in, right? We take responsibility for the relationships we're in, whether they're good or bad. We've allowed things to happen to us. And I can say from being in a narcissistic relationship that there were things that I allowed continually. And so obviously that abuse went on. And so seeing that from that side, it's like that puts you in the driver's seat more, doesn't it? I feel like it gives you more power. You become empowered to see, okay, I'm not a victim. They didn't victimize me, but this was my role in that. And so how do I change how that happened, right? What was my thinking about myself that allowed me to become in a relationship with a narcissist?
Would you look at that third party?
I don't know. I would look at it, but like you said, I don't think I would go that deep. I wouldn't be like, oh my God, they're a narcissist, you better leave them. Oh my, because my own personal experience, I know what a sensitive subject that is. It's like, I would never say to somebody, and people ask, they do ask, should I leave them? And I'm like, quite honestly, whatever you're asking me, I believe you already know the answer to. Like, I don't believe most people are in here. I know I wouldn't go to a psychic and say, is my husband cheating? Because I know my husband loves me. So if you're coming in with these things and you're like, oh, is my husband cheating? A lot of times there's, like you said, the red flags are coming up, right?
Yeah, they are. Go ahead, Roz.
I mean, usually something's coming up or they wouldn't be asking.
Mm-hmm.
Unless they're experiencing tremendous, insecurity for things they're observing, things they're feeling. I mean, that's when those kind of questions result.
It's like that gray area.
Yeah.
There's a lot of gray area with this particular topic, subtopic. And I think here's the thing, like when people will say, is my husband cheating? I will say, you're asking that, so you're already concerned and you believe they are. So I might look and just briefly see, I do feel there's a good likelihood they are, but then they'll say things like, who is it with? And I'll say, there's no benefit to me looking into that. And I feel like that's not right. So let's start talking about you. Ask me some questions about you in this situation. So you as a reader can draw a line and say, that was beneficial. I just want to confirm what you already know. But beyond that is just digging up trouble. Are you going to go hunt that person down and have some ugly interaction? That's just, I don't want to get a part of that.
We should have to know about how it is to be married to a psychic medium.
We should. I think that some people feel like even looking at a husband at all is gray area. And I think that you have to follow your guidance. If you feel weird about a question asked, don't, just say, I'm sorry, I don't feel comfortable looking at that. If you're, sometimes my guides will say, I'll immediately get an answer, and my guides will say, don't tell them that. And I'll say, I'm sorry, I'm just not getting anything. Because I'm not going to, if I tell them, my guides say not to tell you, they're just going to harangue me to tell them. And there's no point in that either. If I'm told not to tell you, it's because it's not in your best and highest good, and I shouldn't tell you, and I'm going to listen to that. But so what do you think about looking at people's children when they say, I have this child who has a disability. What do you see for their future in this, that, and that area? Do you have an issue with doing that?
I don't think so.
I don't either.
I don't either, because to me, as a mother, I can imagine being in the place of that parent, and that is about their life. Your kids, they're this heart, they're your heart, and you just want to know, are they going to have friends? Are they going to be okay? No matter, sometimes when I look at that, I hear they're going to be fine, but what is fine for them and comfortable isn't what you would think.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to have to prepare yourself to accept what the lifestyle they want, which sometimes is they like to be very introverted. They want to work from home. They're not going to have a big circle of friends, and that's what they're happy with. That kind of thing is just preparing them. So to me, it is about the client.
Yeah, I do have a lot of special needs, very autistic. I have one, it's difficult because, there's so much emotion involved, and I had a sick child, so I fully understand what it's like to be a caregiver 24/7 to someone, and it's so stressful. So I totally feel for that person. And it's like, it's the same thing, it's like you do the healing work, and I explain, what came up, but you can't control 100% what that child's gonna experience in their life. You can, like you said, be fine. It's your perspective about what that fine is.
It's also an issue where your concern is, over the long term, what it really usually comes down to is my child going to be okay in the future when I'm not here? Mm-hmm. So that becomes a big part of the issue. And also, I think, realistically, it impacts a mother's life to a staggering degree to have a child who always has some level of need. Because when we have children, we kind of have this expectation that they're going to grow up, then they're going to go out on their own, they're going to have their own life, that doesn't always happen with a child with a disability or an illness. And so that from the perspective of the client, I mean, it's a huge issue for them.
And I try to help the parent too, usually the mom. So I try to give her information again on herself, working on herself. How can she view that? Because obviously you have to learn what that is that child needs and how you're viewing what that is. Like, I mean, if you're viewing it as this horrible situation, usually it's going to be this horrible situation, right? So you have to start looking at what that is about you and give you the mom tools so that she could better understand, like coping mechanisms or breath work or whatever it is, to help her deal in those really stressful situations.
Absolutely, 100% on all of that. Because of my background in mental health, I tend to have people come to me whose children have mental health issues. That's how they usually come to me to begin with, and it doesn't mean that's what it stays about, but it's the same kind of thing. I think that it affects them so strongly when your child has a serious mental health issue and you're very unsure about their future, and you just need some reassurance that there's something better coming out there, and there almost always is. Mm-hmm. Another one is, do not tell someone they're about to die or give a date of death. My only thing about that, my exception to that, is I'll sometimes have people come to me who are very short on money, and they can only afford to go see their loved one once before they pass. And they just want to know they're thinking of flying on this date. Would they still be able to see their their loved one and talk to them, and I can say, I get a really good feeling about that. I think you're going to be okay. I'll look at it that way, but I'm still not going to tell them. Usually these people already know the person is dying, that is already out there. So there's no benefit in somebody knowing the date of death. I don't look at that for my family, for my personal life. I don't want to know. There are just some things I don't want to know, but I understand the financial aspect of this, and I want to help my client get there while they can still talk to their loved one. I will do that. Any thoughts on that, ladies?
I think it's a fine line, just like you said, and you have to really tune into what's for the highest and best good of everyone involved, the client, the family member. And you also have to realize that, and you said this earlier, we're not God. Ultimately, God determines an agreement with who's ever in the position of transitioning. They work that out together. So I might see a generalized time, but yeah, I'm not going to specifically say, yes, they're leaving on such and such a day. And I think people want that for comfort, but it doesn't really provide comfort. I mean, the people ultimately have to deal within themselves how that's going to affect them and what's involved.
They do.
It's hard.
It's very hard, really hard. And sometimes there's been a few times when I was looking at that kind of situation for a person where the angels said they should not go for a visit, that it's so toxic that it's going to be a worse last exchange than they've had before. It will not provide closure. It will not provide peace. It will only give them discord. And so in that case, I have to say, I'm getting it's not in your best and highest good to go for a visit. And that's it. And then you decide, you decide if you still want to go, if you're going to go anyway. But I'm going to tell you what your angels and guides are saying about that. And I have heard that. And I get that, because what we're all looking for is we want the peace and the closure, so badly. But sometimes another person isn't able to give that to you or won't give it to you.
True.
So really it comes down to, do what's in the best and highest good for your client always. And if you have questions about this, again, you're welcome to email them to us. That email is in the show description, no matter where you're watching or listening. Pardon me, a little tickle. And I almost forget to do this every week, so I'm going to do it now. We have books.
Yeah, I don't know.
Sedona Soul Sisters books. Terri Ann has one. Do you have it right there?
I don't have it on me. I meant to do it too, because I was like, I know she's going to ask.
I'm going to choke at the last part of the show. Pardon me. So our books are on Amazon. Let Your Angels Lead. Tell the name of your book.
From Death to Life, The Incredible True Story of Anthony Joseph. And it's about the passing of my son and our relationship after his transition.
It's beautiful. You've been listening and watching the Sedona Soul Sisters show. If you'd like more information about us or our services, tune into our website, sedonasoulsisters.com. Subscribe so you don't miss a single episode, and tune in next Friday. Our topic is creating heaven inside. In the meantime, we hope you have an enlightening week.